6 years on from their decision to step away from royal life, the conversation around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is still framed as if their choice was a reckless gamble rather than an act of survival. The language used is revealing. Sensational, blindsided, laid their grievances bare. These phrases are repeated so often they've become accepted as fact. But when you strip away the loaded wording and look honestly at what happened, a very different picture emerges, one that explains not only why Harry and Meghan left, but why the hostility toward them has never truly subsided. When the Sussexes stepped back in 2020, they weren't rejecting public service. They were rejecting a system that demanded silence in the face of abuse, especially toward Meghan, while offering no meaningful protection in return. The monarchy may have been blindsided, but that says more about its refusal to listen than about the couple's failure to communicate. Harry had spent years warning his family and palace officials about the press, about the danger of history repeating itself, about the toll relentless harassment takes on mental health. Meghan, as a biracial American woman entering one of the most tradition-bound institutions in the world, faced a level of scrutiny that was not only cruel but openly racialized. And yet, when they spoke up, they were told explicitly and implicitly that this was simply the price of the role. So when Harry and Meghan finally told their story through interviews, documentaries, and Harry's memoir Spare, it wasn't an act of vengeance. It was an act of reclamation. For the first time, they control the narrative about their own lives. And that is where the real outrage began. Critics love to point to the Sussexes' commercial success as proof of hypocrisy. Netflix, Spotify, Apple. Headlines scream about $100 million deals as though earning money for your labor is somehow immoral, unless, of course, you're born into the right branch of the family. What's rarely acknowledged is that these deals were not handouts. They were contracts for content, for intellectual property, for storytelling. Harry and Meghan were paid because global companies believed audiences wanted to hear from them. That's not greed, that's market value. And yet, every time the Sussexes secure a lucrative deal, they are branded opportunists, cashing in, monetizing trauma, profiting off the royal family. The same people who insist they should have remained silent now accuse them of speaking too much. It's a no-win situation by design. Contrast that reaction with the response to the Duchy of Cornwall's latest financial report. The estate revealed that Prince William's annual income now sits at around $30 million, a staggering figure by any standard. But the tone of the coverage is markedly different. There is no outrage, no pearl-clutching editorials about greed, no demands that William justify his wealth. Instead, the income is framed as inevitable, almost administrative. This is just how things are done. From Harry and Meghan's perspective, that contrast is impossible to ignore. According to those close to the couple, the revelation has been deeply unsettling, not because William earns a significant income, but because of the glaring double standard in how that income is treated compared to theirs. When Harry and Meghan earn money independently, the criticism is relentless. When William earns vastly more through inherited structures, it's treated as untouchable. This isn't about jealousy, it's about fairness. The Duchy of Cornwall is often described as transparent, but transparency does not equal accountability. The estate exists because of feudal arrangements that date back centuries. Its income is tied to land ownership, rents and investments that William did nothing to create. Harry, on the other hand, walked away from guaranteed financial security and had to build a life from scratch. Every dollar he and Meghan earn is scrutinized because it is earned in public, through work that requires creativity, vulnerability, and relentless exposure. And let's be clear, Harry and Meghan did not leave royal life to get rich. If financial comfort were the goal, staying would have been the easier path. They left because the cost of staying was their mental health, their safety, and potentially far worse. Yet 6 years later, the narrative has somehow flipped. Now we're told their popularity is declining, that they are floundering financially, that they are scrambling. Even routine business decisions, like restructuring staff at Archewell, are spun as signs of failure rather than normal organisational adjustments. In reality, non-profits and foundations make staffing changes all the time, especially as priorities evolve. But when Harry and Meghan do it, it's framed as a crisis. The same applies to their media work. The idea that with love, Meghan not being immediately renewed for another season represents some kind of downfall ignores how streaming deals actually function. First look agreements are standard in the industry. Shows are assessed, refined, and reconsidered. Success isn't always measured by instant renewal. Sometimes it's measured by reach, impact, and long-term brand building. But again, context is stripped away to support a predetermined conclusion that the Sussexes are somehow failing. What's especially telling is how often commentators suggest that Harry and Meghan must now regret leaving, that they should have played the long game, stayed silent, and waited their turn. This argument assumes that enduring mistreatment is a reasonable price to pay for financial comfort. It also assumes that dignity, autonomy, and safety are secondary concerns. For Harry, that suggestion cuts particularly deep. He grew up watching his mother be hounded by the press, manipulated by palace machinery, and ultimately destroyed by the very system that claimed to protect her. Expecting him to sacrifice his wife and children to that same system for the sake of optics is not wisdom, it's cruelty. Privately, yes, Harry and Meghan are human. Of course, they've had moments of reflection. Of course, they've wondered what life would look like had things been different, had the institution evolved faster, had the press been held accountable, had Meghan been welcomed rather than targeted. But reflection does not equal regret. Questioning outcomes does not mean wishing they'd stayed silent and compliant. What frustrates them most, according to those close to them, is the persistent myth that they are somehow less deserving of success because they chose independence. They work relentlessly on causes they believe in: mental health, racial justice, media accountability, community support. Their work may look different from ribbon cuttings and balcony appearances, but it is no less meaningful. Meanwhile, William and Kate are widely praised for their frugal image, their carefully curated privacy, their reluctance to be seen enjoying visible luxury. This restraint is framed as virtue, and yet it exists alongside immense unquestioned wealth. Living quietly in an 8-bedroom lodge on royal land is still living in extraordinary privilege. Choosing not to attend red carpet events does not negate the fact that the financial safety net is absolute. Harry and Meghan's lifestyle, by contrast, is held up as evidence of excess. Their Montecito home is cited repeatedly as proof of extravagance, as though buying a house with their own earnings is somehow scandalous. Rarely mentioned is the reason for that choice: security. After losing state-funded protection, they had to ensure their family's safety in a country where gun violence and paparazzi culture are real threats. Privacy, space, and infrastructure are not indulgences in that context. They are necessities. What's striking is how often William and Kate are praised for modernizing the monarchy, while Harry and Meghan are condemned for challenging it. William's calls to slim down the institution are applauded as visionary. Harry's critiques are dismissed as betrayal. Yet both are responding
they stand
to the
there
same
on duty
reality.
because they're there to protect
Public
the
trust
sovereign
is fragile,
or whoever
and the
is
monarchy's
representing the
future
sovereign here.
depends on change. The difference is that William works within the system, benefiting from its protections, while Harry speaks from outside it,
A lot of
paying the
heads
price
craning
for
to
his
watch them as
honesty.
they come up the aisle.
One approach is rewarded, the other is punished. And that's why the claim that Harry and Meghan are simply sour grapes doesn't hold up. Their frustration isn't rooted in envy, it's rooted in inconsistency. They are judged by one set of rules while others are judged by another. They are told to be transparent
they have certainly been
while
given
being accused of
a bit of a
oversharing.
procession on their own,
They are
and
told
that is,
to
I
earn
think
their
that's
keep
interesting. I think that's
while
something
being
Her Majesty the
attacked
Queen
for
would have
doing
probably
exactly that.
had a hand in. They haven't
Despite
just walked in
everything,
with other
Harry and
members
Meghan
of the royal family.
continue to
They have
move
had a
forward.
moment to process.
They are raising their
Because all
children
these things
away
are choreographed
from the constant
carefully, aren't they,
glare
in that
As-
way,
that
and
defined
As
Harry's
someone close to the
childhood.
Queen said very recently,
They are building
nothing
projects
happens
on
by
their own
chance,
terms.
and this is an example
They are
of that.
refusing to be silent
his brother, on
about
the other hand, will
injustice,
be in the
even
main
when silence
procession
would
with
be
his father.
easier.